Meanwhile, the State Department is warning Americans against conducting business with anyone connected to China's Xinjiang province. This comes over human rights abuses and genocide by the Chinese Communist Party against the ethnic minorities, these Uyghur Muslims and other ethnic minorities. They're locked up, as we've been telling you. The 36-page Xinjiang Supply Chain Business Advisory is renewing the warning first issued in July 2020 by the Trump administration. Joining me right now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow, the author of the book, The Coming Collapse of China, as well as The Great U.S.-China Tech War. Gordon Chang is here. Gordon, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. I've been waiting to see whether or not we're going to have any China policy out of this administration that actually has teeth. You feel optimistic. How do you feel about what you're hearing out of this administration on the warnings around Xinjiang?
Well, I feel optimistic, Maria, because the Biden administration is continuing a Trump enforcement policy. In the last year or so of the Trump administration, they actually started to confiscate goods coming into the U.S. that were made with slave labor. And the Biden administration has continued that enforcement posture. So that is good. But we need to do more because we know there are a lot of high-profile U.S. companies that are bringing goods into the U.S. that are made with forced or slave labor. One of those is Apple. Another is Nike. And I'd like to see their products confiscated because, you know, we fought a war over slavery. We should not be allowing our companies to take advantage of it, even if it's just overseas.
Well, I think you make a really good point here, and I have to call out a couple of these companies. You just said Nike. You know, John Donahoe last week said Nike is for and of China. Obviously, an enormous amount of its profitability is coming from China. And then you've got the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie Munger, praising the Chinese government's handling of silencing Alibaba's Jack Ma. A recent interview, he says he wishes U.S. financial regulators were more like those in China. Really, Charlie Munger?
Yeah, really, Charlie Munger, and especially because he said those comments just before the DD Global IPO. They went IPO 2 Wednesdays ago, 2 days after the IPO, where they raised $4.4 billion. The China Cyberspace Administration goes to DD and prevents downloads of its very famous, very popular ride-hailing app. And there have been other investigations announced. Really, Charlie Munger, I think, has a lot of egg on his face.
Well, I mean, you know, is the administration going to educate these people and school these corporations that are operating in this region, and also, you know, knowing the goals of the CCP wanting to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower? I mean, how irresponsible to say that the CCP is doing the right things and he wishes that U.S. regulators would do that. Silence the head of Alibaba because he criticized the regulatory environment in China? Disappear him for 3 months?
Well, it's not only overtake the U.S. You know, a lot of countries would like to overtake the U.S. They want to overthrow the U.S., and they were inciting violence on our streets both last year and the beginning of this year. And you know, Maria, it's not just forced enslaved labor in Xinjiang, which is the northwestern part of China. It's all over the country. Because as the Australian Strategic Policy Institute report of last March stated, there's about more than 80,000 Uyghurs and other minorities that have been transported around China to provide labor in forced conditions, enslaved conditions. And that includes Nike, which had a factory in Qingdao, where through a South Korean subcontractor, they were actually making shoes in a prison. So clearly, Nike has a lot to account for.
Unbelievable. And a number of financial services companies getting ready to open shop in China soon. They've gotten licenses. You mentioned the China Cyberspace Administration. The Journal is reporting that the Chinese Cyberspace Administration will regulate and tighten the rules for U.S.-listed Chinese companies. That's the same CCP agency that told DD to delay that IPO before it went public last month. Gordon, what do investors need to understand? For those investors that are thinking, maybe I want to dip dip my toe in investing in Chinese companies, and don't tell me it's hard to understand who's tied to the military and who isn't. It's a communist country. They're all tied to the military. And what Xi Jinping says, Xi Jinping does. And that's what the law is. So tell me what you want to say to investors and these corporations that are beginning to do business there as well, have their offices there after getting licenses.
Yeah, the Chinese regulators are now looking at the variable interest entity structures that Alibaba, Didi Global, and most other Chinese tech companies use to list on the U.S. exchanges. These businesses are not open to foreign investors. China could actually expropriate their shares, and this is not a theoretical risk because China expropriated the shares of foreigners in China Unicom in the 1990s that they used a structure very similar to the VIE structure that is currently in use. And also, Yahoo had its interests in Alipay taken away, basically, again, on an expropriation basis. So clearly, the Chinese are now starting to think about these structures, which are really dubious from a legal point of view. This is just nuclear option on the part of China, which they might actually exercise.
Yeah, and Gordon, real quick, I know you mentioned a minute ago that the CCP has led demonstrations in the U.S. I think that was a really important point because most people don't understand that the CCP is following our political debates in the United States, and they're piling on those political debates with propaganda. That was what was heard in the Alaska meeting where the U.S. was schooled about Black Lives Matter and all of this. They are following these political narratives, and social media, it's hard to understand who's CCP, who's, progressives, because they're all piling on. Isn't that right?
That's right. They have been inciting violence on American streets, both openly and surreptitiously. That is not only subversion, Maria, that's an act of war. And China has continued to do this. And I think at some point, the U.S. has got to take a look at this and say, this must not stand. Because really what they're trying to do is overthrow our government. And also, there has been reports that the Chinese government has actually organized protesters on American streets in violent protests, especially the night of May 31st, 1 block north of the White House, the burning of St. John's Church. Those reports are unconfirmed, but many people have given evidence to suggest that's, in fact, what the Communist Party did.
It's a very important point, Gordon, and we're going to follow it. Thanks very much. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Gordon Chang joining us there.
Maria.